Welcome to Afros in the Diaspora. My name is Sarah. I am your host, and together we will vent, rant, laugh, and cry as we discuss the highs and lows of being an immigrant. Stay tuned for stories that will inspire, inform, entertain, and give hope. This is Afros in the Diaspora. Welcome, Soliana. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I am doing okay. How are you been?
I'm good. I'm very excited to have you here. As you know, it's been a long time coming, so
Very excited to be here. I've been hearing about this for so long, actually. And you know what though? I was shocked because I remember you saying a little bit about starting your own project, but I never thought you'd include me. So then when I got that little inbox thing, I was like, oh, you still think about me?
Yes, of course.
No, I was so excited. You don't understand. There's no way I'd give this up.
Amazing. That's so good to hear. We're gonna start this with some icebreakers.
Not icebreakers.
Yes, icebreakers. We're gonna do it.
I hate icebreakers. You remember when they had this in school? What's your name? What's your favorite color?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What's your favorite color and why?
No, literally, what animal would you be?
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's what we're doing, girl. I'm sorry, but that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
No, if it's with you, I'm okay with it.
Okay, amazing. That's perfect. So I'm going to have you answer two icebreakers. The first one, I want you to tell me or tell us about the worst meal you ever prepared.
That's tough. No, that's tough because there's a lot. I'm not a cooker. I'm not. Personally, I'm just not drawn to it. I feel like whatever meal I make doesn't taste good simply because I made it.
Oh, dang.
But if somebody else made it, all of a sudden it's the best meal I've ever had in my life. It would be my prison meal. You know how in prison they let you get that one meal before they kill you? Yeah, that no, actually. I don't know what it is. Anything I make, even if it's just eggs, scrambled eggs, something you can't mess up, it still just would be okay. It would be okay. It wouldn't be good, but it wouldn't be horrible either.
I see what you're saying. But what is the worst one you ever prepared though? What's the worst one?
Okay. The worst one I think would be cereal. Here's the thing. Because when I came to because they don't have cereal. I didn't have cereal growing up as a breakfast thing. So when I came to Canada, I thought cereal was mixed in with something else, whatever you wanted. So there's a cereal part and then there's a juice or something. Because people have, I don't know, when white people talk about having a breakfast or they describe it, there's always an orange juice. So I did a Cheerio or something with orange juice. And I was sick to my stomach. I was appalled. And the crazy thing is, I didn't even judge my skills. I was you know what I'm saying? Sometimes we're you reflect and you're what did I do wrong? I was this is some nasty white people stuff. Yeah. I sat there and I blamed it on them. I said, it couldn't be me. There's only one answer. That's the Canadians.
It's them.
No, it's them. It's not. It's never me.
Not you.
It's never me.
That is so funny.
So I'd probably say cereal.
I hear you though, because growing up in Nigeria, cereal wasn't particularly a breakfast food.
It's not a breakfast. It's not even actual food. Pasta even to us isn't food. If they see you eating pasta or something, they'd be oh, a snack, a little, it's literally, it's a pot, I don't know, you're eating salad to them.
Not a pasta snack. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
You get bullied. You get bullied for thinking that's a meal. They come at you and be oh, you're on a diet now. It's scary.
With pasta?
Yeah. Not in my household. So we never had it.
That's so funny. For me, the worst meal I ever prepared was growing up. My mom was teaching me how to make porridge beans. And as a Nigerian, beans is a thing. It's food. And it's prepared a certain kind of way. But she was teaching me how to prepare it. You know how you're you're in the kitchen when your mom's cooking, and then you just are okay, I'm watching. You kind of do the onions and you do the thing, but you're just doing your task and trying to leave. Yes. So it was my turn to finally cook it, and I added so much salt to that food. I added so much salt to that food. I thought I didn't even add enough. So by the time the food was done. And my mom, obviously, she was she sent me on the errand, so she was the first to taste it. When she tasted it, you know when you taste something and you're just weak, And she just said, Sarah, like, she called me to the kitchen. I'm like, what? Oh, it's done. Yeah, it's done. And she's like, what? How much salt did you put? I said, I put salt. It's not enough, right? And she's like, show me. So she had me show her how much salt I added to the food. And I'm like, I didn't even think it was enough. I thought it was supposed to be like equal quantity beans and salt.
Oh my
So
god.
I was about to literally kill my family that day,
Oh.
especially my parents.
You put the entire thing in
Like,
it?
I literally was like, it had to be equal parts salt and beans. And she's like, no,
You know
no,
what?
no,
That's not
no.
even your fault. That's not your fault, because how are we supposed to measure? There's no measuring stuff.
Exactly.
And I feel like in most of African households, there are no measuring things.
They're really, truly.
You know, don't blame me. Blame the spirit that was supposed to lead me. Because it didn't lead properly. It didn't. If I made it bad, it's not me. I actually no. And why did they get mad for not teaching you?
My mom was too weak to even get mad. She just was like, "Oh my god!" Like I didn't get a whooping that day. She just was like, "Oh
Damn.
Lord," you know.
Oh no, were you guys still able to save it though?
No, it was horrendous.
You know what? Again, it's not your fault.
But I learned. And it's that thing, right? Like you said, there is no measuring spoons or anything. So you figure it out. When you do it too much, then you're like, okay, now I gotta cut back, and you gotta move accordingly.
I feel like we've all had that experience of like measuring, like trying to learn how to measure and not doing it properly.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you had to go through that. That's a whole bean. The whole household was hungry that night.
I'm telling you. My mom had to figure out something else for dinner, because like it was something else. I have another icebreaker question for you. What's the worst job you've ever had?
Ooh, girl.
In Canada, as an immigrant, what's the worst job you've ever had? And if it's your current job, girl, I'm so sorry.
Don't get me in trouble now. No. Don't try to get me in trouble. I'll just say there's nothing about working is appealing to me ever. So there isn't a job where I'm like, oh my god, I loved this workplace. Mm-hmm. It's either the people were great, but like just something about working and then my time being managed. Mm. You know, the clocking in and clocking out part. Right. I could actually be doing nothing. But the fact that I labored under capitalism at that, no, actually it's disgusting. I go home and I feel like a prostitute some days.
Oh Lord, not a prostitute.
No, don't you though? When you go to your workplace, especially in like all white settings too, and you have to change your voice a little bit. Uh-huh. You have to make a joke you don't make, laugh at a joke you don't laugh at. Yeah. Oh my god, I feel so gross when I come home. Actually, it's a day's work.
It's a day's work. I can relate to that. Actually, that code switching, when it's time to switch back, you're like, you have to glitch a couple times, and then you're back to
change the channel, find
the right, turn the antenna, make sure it's connected to the right signal.
Literally everywhere, yeah. But I feel like in any art scene, I never have to do that, or I find myself more enjoying myself and not actually like taking watch of those things, which is like how I was kind of inspired or like decided to go on that path. Because it was the path of least resistance in the sense that like I actually liked what I was doing, and I felt very fulfilled by it.
Okay.
But any other job,
literally, and okay, give examples. Give 1 or 2 examples of the jobs you've had in the past.
Okay, but then girl, you're gonna get me in trouble. No, because I liked all of them, but it's just the spaces. So like I used to do like a serving job, which I really liked. I like talking to the people. Oh, okay. But honestly, sometimes I would see it like as a project. Clocking in, I'd be like, today I'm a different character. Today I'm Stacy. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. And Stacy don't like women. Oh. For some reason.
Like character research in a way.
Exactly. But then, the older I grow up, the more we learn about mental health. Now I'm concerned. You know what I'm saying? Now I start to get concerned. I'm like, okay, let me slow it down a little bit. I don't want to be crazy. I don't want to go down that path.
With all these personalities?
No, actually. And I named them too. I was like, God, let me slow down. Let me make sure a therapist is not nearby. Yeah. But I would say a job I really don't like to do would be like back of house things or actually front of the house things where like I'm communicating with people. Mm-hmm. I like a lot of things where I don't communicate and it's just like either hands-on or task or whatever oriented and not like too much face-to-face.
Okay.
Because I feel like I code switch too much when that happens, and I like to be rooted in myself a little bit more.
Okay.
What about you though?
Oh, yeah. Lord. The worst job I've had in Canada,
Yeah.
I was a door to door. It's, I guess, salesman, but it wasn't really sales. It was just you're going door to door trying to solicit donations for a charity, for people to
Oh, okay.
subscribe to this charity so that they're supporting kids in Africa or
Oh,
Asia or
okay.
wherever. It was in the winter.
That's crazy. Oh,
And it
in
just
Calgary?
was in Calgary in
Ooh,
the winter. It
you
was the
were a
worst.
soldier.
It was the worst time. I was at that job for a week and a half. Because apparently the leader I was put under after my like third or fourth time out with them, and it's a whole day. Like you're going door to door to door to door, regardless
Yeah.
of the weather. You're outside. There isn't a spot for breaks. You either have your water with you, or you don't drink water. Like you're expected to kind of just truck
Ah,
along, and it was horrible. Like it was the worst thing ever.
you stayed for a week though, eh?
I
That's a long
did.
time.
Yo, man,
That's a long
I stayed
time.
for a week plus, and what happened that I didn't go in anymore was the leader, like I was saying, the leader said that, "Oh, I didn't make this many sales, so
Oh.
this probably is not cut out for me." And I'm just like, "Oh, really? Okay. Cool, cool,
Do you know
cool."
the jobs that I be talking about? How well do you do in a fast paced environment? It's zero for me. Every single time they ask, I know it's about to come. It's hell.
It's
Hell is about to
hell. Oh
come.
my goodness. I went
Oh
home
my
that day and I'm
God.
like, thank God. Like when he said that to me in my mind, I'm like, thank God, because I can't do this anymore. I cannot do this anymore. And you have
The
like
relief.
the relief. I don't know why I was like, I could have any day just walked out of that job, but
Yeah.
I was a good soldier. I just stayed and was doing it every day, like knocking on doors in the winter.
Oh my
I wore
God.
the warmest clothes I had layered up. I was still
Jeez.
freezing.
I feel like that has to be like a crime against humanity.
I'm
To have
telling
you
you,
outside in Calgary, winter, that's like -40.
like I felt like we were the charity. Like, give me money, because at this point, help!
Let
Like,
me in the house.
let me in, give me a coffee, something.
Oh my
Like,
God.
it
That's
was,
insane.
it was insane. It was insane. I would say
Yeah.
that's the worst one I've had. But man, I've had all sorts of jobs here. I'm not gonna lie. But that's the worst I've ever done.
Jeez.
For sure.
No, I'm actually surprised you didn't even call the cops.
I wasn't
Abuse
being
of the word. What?
I wasn't being held against my will. I just like, oh my
No, that's
gosh.
this girl.
It was not great. It was not great. It was horrible. But here I am today. Thank God for
I'm
life.
proud of you.
Right? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
You made it out.
I made it out after 1 week.
God. Yeah. Damn. Mm-mm.
Yeah. But this was awesome. Thank you for engaging with me for the
Of
icebreakers.
course.
Let's get into our topic for today. We're talking about being an artist or navigating the arts as an immigrant woman who's also young and super talented. And I just want you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your immigrant story of when you moved here, how you moved here, how long you've been here. Just something really
Yeah.
short about your experience here so far.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. I was born in Kenya. My mom's Kenyan, my father is Ethiopian. We came to Canada, I think like 2008, but like turning 2009. And I remember like the first day we came, like we landed in Canada, we landed in Vancouver, and it was snowing. And I've never seen snow before. So then when I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, ash. Like, there's a city nearby burning down. Because that's what I thought. That's the only time I had seen white stuff in the sky was like when things were burning, like a really bad fire.
Yeah.
And the ash would come, and I'm like, whoa. I was like, we escaped. We got out of the ghetto just to enter another ghetto. This is crazy. This is crazy. And my dad is like, it's not ash, it's cold. And I was like, yeah, what's that?
Yeah.
No, it was a lot of fun. I was very intrigued by the snow. And I remember the first day as well, my dad was so terrified of it that like he wouldn't let me outside. So I was basically under house arrest. And I would also like layer up and everything because I'd see kids for the first time. And it's been like a while because of the whole flight there too. Because it's far, and I think it was like a direct flight. I don't think we had any layovers.
Okay.
So it was long. It was. So when I saw kids, I was like, oh my gosh, like let me go outside. And my dad was like, no, make sure to wear layers. I learned about long johns. I go to sleep, 3 blankets, socks, and another one. It's a lot. It's a lot just to survive the winter. And I used to think my parents were paranoid, but honestly, hearing your story of like the first time with your job going house to house in winter, there was no exaggeration.
Yeah.
This is actually nothing could have prepared me for the winters. I don't like it here. I do not like the winters.
Yeah, the winters are something else, but like it's a really cool city, so
It is a
we
cool city. That
we're
one,
just
yeah,
like
I'll definitely agree. The cold is insane.
the cold is
Yeah, and
insane, but like
the fact that it lasts 8 months too. Like, what other season is there but winter? That's the problem. That's the problem. If we had a summer, if we had a spring, a little fall. I think fall was 2 weeks. It's supposed to snow next week.
like please, can you not? Can you not with this? Can you not forecast the snow?
But you know what's
please?
crazy is it's such a Canadian thing to do. Like the
Mm-hmm.
first thing we talk about is weather and the first snowfall. Like
Yeah,
we're in like the Game of Thrones. The winter's coming.
winter's coming. Literally, it's
It's
just
bad.
always
We've
coming.
been
You know,
traumatized.
so
Yeah,
it's here.
yeah.
But yeah, so like, when did you guys move to Calgary?
Calgary, we moved like I think after a year or a couple months of being in Vancouver first because we didn't know too much people. My dad was like, "It's good to go to a place where there's community, and in that way, like we can also get support and learn how to navigate a new country." So we moved to Calgary. There's a lot more like Eastern African people here, so which is interesting because now the older I am and the more that you learn about art scenes, because Calgary is a small city and Vancouver is pretty big, and there is a big art scene there. It's interesting because there's not a lot of like people of color there. So then I'm just like,
Mm.
what is the art scene and what does it contain if there's just like white people? But there's a lot more in Calgary, which is why I actually really did. I'm very grateful that I kind of begin my journey here,
Mm-hmm.
just because although the communities are smaller, I'd say it's still very like I don't know, it's very like soothing or like homey feeling where it's just like
Mm.
everybody does watch out for each other when you
Mm.
do like if you do end up meeting a film like filmmaker, he'll definitely be contacting you more than once,
Mm-hmm.
and then vice versa, right? So I think that having a smaller community or having being in a smaller city allows me to have like community and be more in touch with them, so I'm definitely grateful for that. But yeah, we moved in Calgary I think a couple months after, or at least a year.
Mm. Calgary's not small though. I just want to say
You know it's
that
crazy.
Calgary's not small. I think it's
We
just
are splits.
there's just
We're splits.
there's a lot more
So
black people here. I think I don't know for a fact, but I
I
know
think there's
that.
more in Toronto, but
Oh,
there's
I
definitely black
mean,
people.
we're not even talking about Toronto
I was
now.
about to say, like,
Toronto
what
is
were you
like,
thinking? All of Canada?
I mean,
Montreal, Toronto have a lot,
Montreal, Toronto,
surprisingly.
there's the blacks
Yeah.
there. The blacks are there.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't know that much about Vancouver. I know a few Nigerians or other black people in Vancouver, but because Calgary is my city where I'm based, I like the
Yeah.
community here is certainly more impactful,
I agree.
or has been so far.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, there's a healthy community of blacks, and you can
Yes.
really when
You
you
definitely
start,
can.
yeah, you can kind of navigate and find your way,
I
and
completely
find
agree.
your
Yeah.
people, find friends, build relationships and things like that.
Yeah, and I think even more so like nowadays than before, because I think before it was a little bit more quiet, or maybe it's because like of the different. If you're in Southeast Calgary compared to like if you're in the Northeast, you don't get connected much, and I feel
Mm,
like that kind of people within that area would stay in their areas, and it's harder to come out because our
mm-hmm,
transit system sucks too. So like from one end to the other, it would
mm-hmm,
be like a 30-minute drive
mm-hmm.
driving, right? Like
Yeah,
transit is a lot more
it's a
on that.
nightmare.
So yeah, so I completely agree. I think there is a lot of black people here and definitely like an art scene here. It's just harder for us if you've never been and if you're the only person that's navigating it
Mm-hmm.
in your life. It's really hard to get into that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's literally true for any community or any like city you find
Very
yourself
true.
in. If when you're a newcomer, you kind of need someone to help show the ropes, or like you need
Yes,
to really be on the lookout for. Okay, there's a get together here, there's a conference here, there's a showing
absolutely.
here, and there's events, and then going to those events and introducing yourself to people, and
Yeah,
slowly but surely you build your own community.
yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about your artistry, girl. Tell us about
So,
Soliana. Tell us
so
about her.
Soliana is my stage name, which I just love I love a stage name. Anytime there's an artist that I think about and I'm like, oh, I really like them, they always have a stage name. So I was like,
Hmm.
I need one. Like, I need something to kind of like put me in that work mode or like, set the environment or set the tone for myself. And so I was like, what's an easy name for people to kind of say, but also is like, culturally still mine. And so I came up with Soliana because it means light. So I was just like, I like that. I want to be, you know what I'm saying? Have the spotlight on me, but also be a light for others.
In what language?
In Amharic. Amharic and Tigrinya, which is like mostly spoken in Eritrea. But yeah, both in Ethiopia and Eritrean origins. So it means the light of God. But I like it. So I decided to go with that. And then I am an aspiring actor and model here in Calgary. I started off my journey, I think more like I never took it seriously at first because it was kind of just like a drama class thing where you're in drama class, especially in junior high and elementary school, which I was a part of because, all the loud kids like would go there and they'd kind of play with themselves and get to be themselves essentially. Yeah. So I remember one of like my English teacher being like, you should take drama class. And she was also teaching drama. And then we just do like little prompts or scenes. And at some point, like they would stop me or they'd stop the entire, like the teacher would stop me and be like, are you okay? Like if we're doing like, if I'm playing a character, I'm supposed to be crying or sad. And I'd be like, oh, did I get you? Like, were you just joking or like, were you being serious? Like, did I actually convince you sort of thing? And then the more that I did it, the more that I found kind of people around me, were able to interact with the character that I played. And then I was like, oh, this is a really cool kind of, way of kind of moving in the world and also understanding stories. And I also think it touches a little bit because growing up in Kenya, most of learning comes through storytelling. Like everything is done within the storytelling environment. And then when I came here, I found a bit of an absence to that, or maybe I just wasn't able to connect properly with how they tell stories, but they don't. They just like, it's either a fact thing or something, but there's never a story being told. And I love that. I think that was what like also personally helped me like learn better too. So I remember because math is one of my worst subjects. In order to teach myself math, I have to look into these people deeply. So I would look into, what's that guy's name? Pythagorean? The one who came up with the little...
the Pythagoras theory?
Yes, that man.
That guy.
Right?
I don't know who he is. I don't know who he is.
I don't know who he was, but once he said his theory, I was like, let me get that down, okay? So why did he come up with this theory? And then I just pretend like I'm speaking with him or like, kind of like try to kind of tell myself a story in that way so that I could learn a little bit better. And I found that kind of cool because whenever I would tell stories with friends or like I would be reading like a fan fiction, for example, they'd all get like really excited or scary stories, which is something like I like to do with my classmates where I'll tell them a scary story from like a Reddit post. And then they would say it back. They'd say another one on like, we were back in the 7th grade. We don't do this no more. They'd definitely bully me if I was to do something like that. But it was interesting in how like what sort of reactions I would get. And I kind of wanted to continue that storytelling, but I didn't think I could make a career out of it. So close to like end of high school, I was thinking more about, political things to do because I feel like for most African countries, we all kind of grow up we kind of grow up being involved in politics or at least trying to have an opinion about the world around us. Whereas I feel like here or in most Western countries, you kind of have the privilege not to talk about it because sometimes it doesn't affect you. And we've never kind of had that privilege, at least from Kenya. In the parts that I was from, it wasn't a privilege that we had. Like if you wanted to be a member of society, you had to engage in things the society did, and that's politics. So I remember being like, okay, like maybe I can go into politics because it still touches, on my roots and kind of community. And as I was kind of exploring that, I found that politics is very, dim. It's very dim. And the sort of people, it's mostly arguments too. And I felt like when I was learning or kind of going in that path, I didn't necessarily feel like a change was being made. It was more kind of just arguments and being right or wrong in that kind of like consciousness around that. But with in the field of the arts, you still talk about politics and you still kind of engage in that, but it's a more fruitful way of doing it. At least I found it for myself. So then when I am kind of, in the art field or trying to, understand characters or kind of struggles that they went through or life experiences, then I can kind of open up that scene for myself and engage in the world like that, especially the world outside of me and like how I grew up. And so I found it more, a bit more positive in how I interact with society. I want to make more communities. I want to be more aware of things. And I'm able to kind of do that in this path.
Wow.
So yeah, so then I was like, let me try and go in it. And it's funny because it don't make money.
I mean,
you bring this up to like any of like African, because we come from a very a society that's very like structured. So like you go to school, you graduate, then after graduations, you get a job in whatever you studied, and that makes you money to provide for yourself and those around you. So when we go into the arts field, it's just like the job isn't necessarily structured the same way. And so there's a lot of fear around that it doesn't make any money and therefore won't be successful and you won't contribute to, yourself, your household, or your community. And that's a very fearful thing, especially in the arts, which is why I kind of love being around artists because, I don't know, their drive or like the fact that they're still kind of, figuring themselves out and their work. It's very inspiring, but also very hopeful in the way that like it can be done. You just got to find it. You just got to, make it work for you.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you for sharing all that, Soliana, because like that's a lot from like school, right? To you navigating mathematics through storytelling. I mean,
bro, me and Pythagorean, you should have caught us. Second period. Me and homeboy were talking about life. He was talking about he broke up with a girl, and that's why, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Because instead of trying to get to her house using a straight line, you just gotta cut it. You gotta cut it. Sometimes you gotta sneak around, get through it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
The one, because math was not my favorite subject either in school. Problems that they call word problems. So if Soliana has 2 pens and she gifts 1 pen to Michael, and Michael breaks that pen in half and returns 1 to her, what is the distance between Michael's house and Soliana's house? Like just those weird ass freaking word problems.
I've never felt stupider in my life than those problems. I actually never felt. I honestly, at some point, when they give you the test and like it's instead of them wanting like a number as a result, they want a sentence. I actually start giving out advice. No, because what you're not about to get from me is a solution. What I'm gonna do is help Soliana get her money back because he broke it, right?
Because he broke it, yeah.
Nah.
Oh my Lord.
They were horrible, yeah.
Yeah, no, those word problems were something else, but like it's kind of sort of like storytelling through math in a way. I don't know. It's just I need to think about that more. But honestly, it traumatized me in school.
You're not the only one, Dory.
That's really cool how you were able to navigate school, mathematics, and all that through storytelling. Find yourself, find your people, find your voice. Yes. Like that's powerful. What has your experience been so far navigating the arts? Your journey as a model, as an actor, whether it's for stage or for films. Like, how have you been able to navigate things? At the end of the day, like you're a Soliana, you're not a Black Canadian, you're an immigrant. You're Kenyan, and Ethiopian, and navigating all that with your identity and who you are, your way of seeing the world, and all that. Talk about it a little bit.
That's a pretty good question. I feel like I don't even know if I have the full answer yet, but I know that so far up to this point, navigating it has been very difficult just because sometimes it feels like you don't have kind of a ground in order to make a stand on anything, or like roots, like something kind of strong to fall back on or explain, or I don't know, kind of like take your hand and walk you through stuff. I haven't necessarily had that experience, but in being alone in the journey, I've faced a lot of like times of hopelessness in a way, just because I feel like in the art field, it's a bit different than other ones, just because there isn't a structured way of either understanding or kind of like scoring yourself. Like there's no scoreboard, right? To be like, oh, I studied, and therefore, or like I worked this many hours, so now I get a promotion. Like that's not how it works in the art field. It's kind of just, there's no linear linear way of kind of seeing things or evaluating anything. So it's kind of hard to see, to look at yourself and be like, oh, I'm, somebody who's well-rounded, or I'm like, I'm a seasoned this, I'm a seasoned actor, I'm a seasoned, model, I'm a whatever it may be. Because it's just like, what metrics did you use to and it's never going to be the same as another actor or another model or, another writer or film producer. It's always going to be different. I feel mostly for my journey in the arts, it has a lot to do with identity and what that is. And honestly, first understanding what that is and then kind of like putting me in the center of the question. But a lot of the thing has to do like, why do I want to storytell? Like, what's the importance of storytelling? And why do I feel like I want to be in that space? Can I survive in a different space? Is this necessary for who I am or who I want to be as a person? And I think storytelling for me is a way that like connects me to kind of people, to humans. Like it's through stories where we learn about like struggles. It's through stories where like, you understand humans and then you understand the nature of human and then what it means for yourself to be one. So it's hard at first because you start out and there's none of that. And especially when you come from like, high school or like a structured thing before. And then you just get thrown into this thing and they're just like finger paint. And then sometimes you'll get an audience, like a standing applause, and sometimes you'll get silence. So in the end, it's to be like, what did I want to do? I think the arts forces you to look at yourself as a person a lot, as a human being, and navigate that. Whereas different, and not to kind of come for other careers, but different careers, at least I found from my perspective, like for example, being a doctor, immediately you're given a virtue, you're given a place in society, and that's you're a good person because you're a healer. If you're an engineer, you're a social person, you're somebody who has your society, who does this and that. And then some jobs come with everything. It comes with a personality. It comes with, that whole, like, are you a good person? Are you a bad person? But then when it comes to being an artist, where it's just like other people, if you're in the space of other artists, obviously it's going to be talked about in a higher kind of like esteem, where you're in a space with people who don't know what, the arts is or takes it seriously as an actual career, you're going to get a different kind of reaction. So personally, I like the arts because it forces you to come to like at least ask yourself really, really important questions about being alive. And I love storytelling. I like being around people and humans, and whatever struggles other people are going to, I want to be a part of that struggle. And I also want to know what that looks like for me, like as an individual as well. Like if I'm going through something, what it means to have a community, what it means to have, people to kind of fall back on, and then getting that strength back. I don't know. It's just, it feels like a way of life, honestly. Not to sound like very philosophical and be like, oh yeah, like, we sit here and we ponder and we rub our beards and we talk about like really big stuff, like the purpose of life. But I think it's really hard because when you're not always getting a job back to back, you end up going into this like, doom thought where you're like, why am I even breathing? Like, what have I done? What have I contributed to society? Those things like your parents would say, like in my household, there's this like, I said, like, you're an empty can, like don't koro. And I'm just like, ooh, is that what I am? An empty can today? Do I want to be that idea of like, now all of a sudden I'm going through like existentialism. Like I'm going through the different phases of like why I exist. And it's interesting because if no other career kind of makes me think that way, then why is knowing my importance so important to being alive? Like why is me knowing the purpose of life required? Why can't I just be alive and just do the things that I need to do? Like why can't I just do a 9 to 5? Right? Because at the end of the day, it gives me a paycheck, and that paycheck helps me eat and go out on weekends. So if it's that's all that there is, why isn't it sufficient? Sort of thing. So personally, in my journey, I think it's going to look different for everybody, but my journey is to kind of navigating. It's like I think it's a lot in the journey of it. Like it's a lot in the not knowing of it. It's a lot. Everything's in the question of it. Like I don't want to sound like super like philosophical or like theoretical. I don't want to be a theorist here and be like, like all in our heads and all like, let's think thoughts sort of thing. But like genuinely it does. And I am that kind of person by nature, but I always do kind of gravitate towards those sort of questions where I'm just like, I don't know who I am, and I don't know why that's important to know who I am. But then in the art field, especially in acting, I don't necessarily need to know who I am. Sometimes I play the character that I'm supposed to play, and then when I kind of go back into being, Werknesh, I'm no longer Soliana. It's almost like the things I question, I'm still questioning them. It's not like everything gets solved immediately, but it makes it look like in portions that I can actually like chew. I'm just like, I don't know it today. That's okay. Maybe I'll plan to know it in 5 years, and it'll look like this. It'll look like having fun, or it'll look like, compassion, and how I can either give that to myself and to my community in the best way that I can do that. And mostly I feel that when I'm acting. So I've decided, to kind of stay with it. It's crazy though, because, as members of society, the things people say around us definitely will impact you, and it'll definitely make you feel a sort of way. And I don't think like that whole advice of like, you shouldn't care what people think is actually ever like a proper advice, because everything is made up on how we think. Literally, makeup, how we buy makeup, how we take care of ourselves, how we get our hair done, it's all based on trends and how others will see us. And I don't think it's always a negative thing. I think it's positive. Somebody seeing you in a good light makes you feel good, and I don't think that's like a shallow thing. I think it's pretty good to feel good by others, but to also know which ones are kind of worth it and not just like a little bit of a high, that like little clout. You get a little compliment on your pictures you just posted and you feel cute for 15 minutes. But then, you know what I'm saying? So
I know
I'm just
what
like,
you mean, yeah.
Yeah, try to find whatever lasts the longest. And I feel like giving compassion, or learning how to give compassion to others and to myself is what is the fuzzy little feelings that last long for me.
Yeah. I think that is important, compassion. And oh my goodness, you said so much and such important things, because I'm an artist myself, as you may know.
Of course, biggest fan.
But I think like what you said is exactly it. Like you go through those moments of like, wait, who am I and why am I doing this? And who gave me the audacity
Literally.
to think I can do this for a living? Why do I feel like I can actually make a living out of this?
No,
You just,
actually.
there are moments for sure where you're like, wait, run this back now. How did I
No.
land here? And just
It's like, I could have kept this in the drafts.
I
There's no
could have,
need.
exactly. You're like, wait, is it too late for me to like be a doctor?
A
Oh
doctor?
my, I can't go back to school. No, no, no. And then you're like, wait. Because
No,
like
literally.
you're right. It's not a stable field by any means. There's
Yeah.
always work to do, and a lot of the work
Yes.
is unseen. Like when the thing, for instance, this is an example. When a writer is actually writing, no one is
Yeah.
paying that writer to write until the book sells. That's when
Exactly.
all the sleepless nights, all the stress, all
Yes.
the tears, and it could take
Pays
years.
off.
It could
Exactly.
take years of unseen
Literal.
hard work that nobody
Yeah.
sees. She's working every day. It's hard work, but no one is
Mhm.
seeing it. And because it's not
Exactly.
making money in the moment, it could
Yeah.
be so disregarded and dismissed as like, well, you could just do that for a hobby and get a job
Yeah.
that pays you more. But like,
Yeah.
and this is the world we live in. You got to pay rent, you got to actually live,
You do.
you got to pay to
Yeah.
live. You literally pay to
The
live
cost
in
of
this
living is a little
world.
high.
And
No,
it's, yeah, I
literally.
mean, that's just on an upward trajectory. So like,
Yeah.
the example I was giving is like, you don't,
Hmm.
like, the writer does not make a dime until that book sells. And if
Yeah.
that person is blessed to find grants here and there that would kind of fund their lives for the period of time or parts of the time that they're writing, that's
Yeah.
amazing. But for the most part, they need to also find other things they can do for money.
Yeah.
That doesn't remove from the fact that they're writers. But I definitely go through moments where I'm like, wait, breathe. What
Yes.
is that why again? Why am I doing this again? What
Yes.
is it I'm trying to achieve again? And
Yeah.
then, soaking myself back in that gives me the fuel I need to keep moving. And
Yes.
it's really hard because, again, no one is seeing it in the
Absolutely not.
moment.
It's almost You know what it's like? It's like track and field, like with Usain Bolt, where it's just like for 4 years you're building your way up. You're practicing day and night,
Yep.
like 20 hours of training a day
Yeah.
for 5 seconds. For 5 seconds of your life.
Right.
that
Right.
glo-
To just
that you know what I'm saying? The race is quick. The race is a couple seconds, but the build up is insane.
it's
But
insane.
it's also cool because I feel like, you know, and I feel like it's a very biased stance, but I do have this interaction where most artists that I face are more well-rounded people than like the ones that are not, just because the things that you did have to practice, like being consistent with yourself, you know, showing up when you like no one's kind of rooting for you or there's no audience to clap for you, you know, when there it's I don't know, it's like it puts you at the feet of like reality, of like what is your life, who are you as a person, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're always doing things because there's a sound, you know, there's a soundtrack or like a laugh track that's always gonna laugh at a joke you're gonna make, but you never find anything you say funny. At the end of the day, when the soundtrack stops, when the battery dies and you're making those jokes, you're sitting in the room by yourself. And you have to wonder, am I schizophrenic or is it demons
No,
that live in my
man,
head?
not
No,
demons,
actually,
not
no,
demons. No, the
actually,
blood of
because
Jesus, the
who's
blood
my
of
audience?
Jesus. No.
But like, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, okay, like it's so interesting because you get to you get to kind of be curious about yourself,
Yep.
and the space that you occupy as a living person. And
Mm.
it's so interesting because I feel like as an artist, you have to take that seriously because that's all that you have is yourself. Whereas, you know, different fields, it's more like the things that you produce. And that gives you the sense of self. Being a doctor is almost like, you know, and you know what? I'm sorry I keep using the example as a doctor, but I feel like it's like cross-cultural in a way. Because doctors, from the dawn of age before Jesus himself took flesh, doctors have always been the top of society. They've always been the most well-respected, the most well-loved people, and have always been seen in more of a positive light, like healers, than any other field for a very long time. But like whenever you're even like, if you ever hear girls talking and they're like, you know, trying to introduce or hype a person up and they're like, he's a doctor, right? It's different. It's different because now we all know what that means. We all know he's a great human being. He probably loves children. He hates war. He's probably against fascism and anti-capitalistic. Like he's a good human being, sort of thing. But then you hear things like, oh, he's a poet or he's a film producer. It doesn't necessarily build a character, right?
Yeah.
It only remains as a career.
Yeah.
And so in the art field, it's really scary because for people who don't know what your career is, or who have, you know, kind of interacted with it, all they hear is like you're bum. You know, you're somebody who's very privileged, who lives like either, you know, under your mom's basement, you get food all the time, but because you don't want to be serious about your life, you're picking these little hobbies. You're never, you know, so they build this kind of like narrative, of like who you are as a person, and you kind of have to fight against that.
Yeah.
So I completely agree. Like it's, you come home and you do the work on your own, and not only that, but you're mostly not getting, you know, emotional and that kind of support from anybody else because no one gets to. I don't think a lot of humans are emotionally mature people, especially adults. So it's hard because then there's also that emptiness too. You feel a little bit lonely in the struggle.
Yeah. Mike, I have a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
Within your family, like your parents, your siblings, you know, uncles, aunties, whatever,
Yeah.
how has that been received as you choosing to be Soliana, and be an artist and be an actor, be an actor, be a model? Like when they see your face
Yeah.
somewhere, what are they like? Are they like, wait, is that my daughter? Like, you know, what is that like? Tell me about it.
You know what's so crazy is it's so true about immigrant parents that nothing really clicks for them when it comes to like art industries. Because I told my dad I was going to be an actor, and he was like, of course, like you can, I would never tell you what to do, right? Like you're free as long as you pursue something and you have passion, go for it. I was like, thank you so much.
Amazing.
So then I stopped, you know, attending university for poli-sci, and then I was going to like a college for acting, and he was like, you stopped university? He's like, what? He's like, what are you talking about? Like, I told you you can pursue everything, but like through that university, I'm talking like whatever the university is offering you, you would do it through there, get a master's, maybe PhD, you know, like that. Yeah. So then either he's like, they're still accepting people for law school, medicine school. You're really good at arguing, so think about law. And I'm like, okay. But there is a support, and I think it comes almost from a place of like, it's definitely from a place of love, but it's also from a lack of understanding too, because especially for immigrant parents that were born and raised here, their idea of success and a stable life it takes a specific path, and that path is very narrow, right? You go to school, you go to med school, you put in the hours, and that no matter where you go in life, and also because a doctor's life is highly valued by society, you'll be somebody who's treated with your human like rights, right, and your decency. So continue that path, so that the bad things we've seen or like endured, this is the security sort of thing. And so when you take a step away from that, I think it's normal for them to have like fears, and definitely concerns for you. And I don't think they'd be parents if they didn't either. But it's it's nice too when you kind of, especially for my dad, I've kind of watched him overcome his fears, or kind of take his fears on in support of his daughter. And I like that a lot, like the acknowledgement of like, this isn't something I've seen before, but if it makes you happy and, it's an actual thing that exists in society, like you're not the first actor in the world, and as long as like you're striving for that, continue to go. So like he recently saw me like on a TV special, and he was like, you see, and it was a live thing too for some modeling gig. And he was like, wow, may God guide you. And I was like, thanks. And he's like, but remember, med school, the application.
They're still open.
No, literally.
They're still accepting
like,
people.
Your daughter, your sister is an engineer. She can get you into. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not how it works. But it's still, it's still always at the back of their mind because they haven't seen it yet. But I like that, especially when you have a family member or a family support group that like, they're still willing to be there for you, even when they do not understand what you're going up against. And I think I'm very blessed to have that both in my dad and my parents too. But especially in like, I don't think I get a lot of pushback from like younger folks, so like my cousins and stuff, like definitely nothing from them. They're rah-rah. But older generations a little bit tougher. But it's nice because that whole thing of like, the work that you do in silence or the work that you do in kind of darkness that's only revealed to you. I think this is one of them as well. And it's kind of, sitting with that uncomfortable feeling, but deciding there's something worth more than just like a momentary shame or insecurity, and kind of something a little bit above that.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Of course.
I'm from a Nigerian home, as we all know.
Yes.
And at the time that I was growing up, you're either a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer,
Literally.
a banker.
You know what? Lawyer only recently made it too, because a lawyer is only attached to the government. So if the government is bad, we don't care if you're a lawyer. Literally,
really?
It's newer.
Oh,
at least. Oh, sorry. At least in my household, like a lawyer was a more new thing. It's kind of like going into business. Like if somebody was like, oh yeah, they're studying business, but like a doctor is well known.
Oh yeah,
a doctor is number one. Engineer, they're definitely up there.
Yeah, but for me, like growing up, lawyer was there, so it was doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant, banker. Or like a banker, because you're near money, so you probably are making some, or you're a disappointment. Like that was literally the fifth career, a disappointment, right? Like, so my own story is something else, but I'm like you, I'm grateful that like my parents are at a place where like they can support me. They don't have all the answers and they pray for me every day. Yes. But, they're on like,
my name was up there.
Yeah, exactly. But they support me. They're like, oh, so when's your next gig? And I'm like, ooh, you're using the gig word. That's awesome, So when they get to that point, it's always amazing. But it's not always a great road for them to get there, to be honest, right?
Very, I agree.
So my next question for you is just about building community within the arts community for yourself, and how that has been for you. So what has that been like, I guess, building a network of people, collaborators, people that like you could work with in the future? What has that all been like?
In Calgary, I would say that like opportunity for, at least in acting, I haven't talked a lot about modeling, but same in kind of modeling, because at least there's like an agency you'd be under in modeling. Acting, sometimes you could be like self-represented. And so And so when it comes to acting, it's very hard at first, especially because there's different forms of acting. So there's like theater and film, and so if you want to start off in theater, you might already have that kind of exposure in high school, and you can continue like taking those courses too. I feel like for film is very difficult because now you have to go and find that space. It's not a space that's always been available to you, at least in my perspective. So I definitely took classes kind of downtown at the Company of Rogue. They're a wonderful, wonderful class. And I think they've been in Calgary for like a very long time as well. But, I started there, and first classes, I think it was like a bit of everyone from different walks of life, interestingly, because it was an acting class, but they would be directors who would want to know more about how to direct somebody, because they're like, I'm kind of more on the technical side, and I know how it looks on the camera, but I don't know what sort of like directions to be giving actors. So they would take classes, writers would take classes to be like, I want to write something more authentic or something that comes out naturally, so I want to first learn how to, like, it would go through me as an actor too. And so kind of ending up in a class filled of like not just aspiring actors, but like people trying to understand what it means to be a human, I guess, and how to communicate with other humans. It was pretty cool, and I think that's where I started first building connections and kind of being like, obviously that we'll see each other's performances in class, and then they're like, okay, like I'm doing something, and I would want you to play a character that I think you'd be a great fit for, and so it start off there, and then I feel like being in as a, like in in the arts industry, you definitely have to have more than one form of art. You kind of have to pick up a little bit of everything, because at that one, you might not always have the opportunity to practice it all the time. So in the meanwhile, kind of in the between spaces, you need to find a way to keep yourself, I think, still creative and still like moving.
Yep.
So you're not too stiff, but at the same time, like you have to be able to like give to the community in a way, because they can't always be the only one giving to you, giving you opportunities, giving you spaces, giving you advice. You kind of, and that's how it works living in a society, because you have to participate. It's the participation that kind of matters. So I first started off there, and then I did a couple of short films. I think it's hard being an actor in Calgary, just because you don't get any of the big productions, especially because a lot of work would come like internationally with film in Calgary. Big productions would film, but all they would want is extra. But it's also a great starting point too, to start as an extra, because you now have to like worry about things you've never worried about, like what it means to eat at a restaurant, like what that looks like physically, because you're no longer focused on speech and like making sure that you've got your lines memorized. So it's a good technique, but if you want to go kind of past that, I feel it's hard to get those opportunities, just because they hire bigger actors from somewhere else and then bring them here. So my first route was kind of starting with local filmmakers and local writers, and kind of hearing their story, and then being like, oh man, I hope that I can at least understand your story well enough, or do the character justice enough, that it's being told in the light that you wanted to tell it in. And it's pretty interesting, because I didn't know what it meant to be like an actor at first, because I was like, oh, it's the audience I should care about. And then the more that I'm kind of growing in the field, I'm like, actually, that's not my job. That's the cameraman's job. He can care about how it's going to look to the audience. At the end of the day, my job is just as a writer. They wrote a character, and then I'm trying to understand enough of that with my world experiences as Werknesh to kind of bring that into light, or bring it to a middle space that can be interpreted properly. So I started off a little bit there, and then going to events as well, just to support like local creatives too. There's a lot of like Calgary film festivals that are here, and they display it too. Like at first it's a bit hard. You can go on Facebook, go to those little actors, local actors, little group chats, and then be a part of it, because some people post their work there too. And so I think it's really interesting how you just put something to the world, and sometimes people might not show up. Sometimes there might be a big crowd, but at the end of the day, you kind of, you do the thing that you've always been doing in the dark. It's just now you've kind of given an audience the opportunity to either be there or not.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Amazing. This has been amazing, Soliana. I just want to thank you for sharing and for being part of the, Afros in the Diaspora podcast today.
I'm so grateful to be here.
Yeah. And as we're rounding up, I just want you to drop a gem. Like, what is an African proverb, a word of advice, something someone told you that has stuck with you and has, helped you truck along and move forward in the navigation of life. Like, just give us a word of advice real quick.
I don't know too much about proverbs. We don't say proverbs. We say kind of like, references. We bully in my household personally. You just go, don't be like a frog or like a donkey. Just kind of, so I don't have any proverbs to say, but something like a pretty nice way to, because I used to get lost a lot, and I think it's normal to get lost a lot on your journey, especially because it doesn't look like a straight line, and I don't think it's supposed to. But sometimes when you do have that moment of like confusion or regret, a way to kind of navigate that, something somebody has told me was just like, kind of navigate with compassion. Whatever you do, as long as it's done with compassion, I feel like it's easier to understand something. It's easier to, and if that's what I want to do, because I feel like acting is a way that I stay in touch with communities, is how I understand people that are not like me, or understand even deeper people that are like me, is if I must do it with compassion. So navigate with compassion, be compassionate to yourself. And sometimes doing that won't look very compassionate to others, right? If you want to be more serious about your artwork or whatever it is that you want to focus on, even like in other fields like mental health or, I don't know, like work-life balance or stuff, like being compassionate to yourself won't look compassionate to your boss, or it won't look compassionate to people who kind of don't care about your mental health, but like more like what you give them. So obviously compassion can look very different, and I understand that like the word itself might sound very, very vague, but what I'm trying to say is do it with love. Do it with love, and the fight sometimes is a little bit bleak, but fight with hope, fight without hope, fight regardless is all that's about. Just keep doing the things that you like.
Yeah, that's amazing. Fight with hope, fight without hope, fight
Fight
regardless. Like,
regardless.
and
Yeah.
do it
You do.
with love.
And I love that too, because personally I thought that life is supposed to be navigated very optimistically. Like, you're supposed to be happy about everything. You got to be like very positive about everything.
Talk about it.
And I was just like, this is not a positive experience. I'm having a lot of bad experiences. I'm having a lot of, I kind of want to give up sort of moments, but as long as I keep fighting, it doesn't need to be optimistic. It can be very bleak. But I like what I do, and it allows me to be a more compassionate person. Yeah. And I think that's what we need more in the world anyways. Yeah. So.
That's amazing. Thank you again, Soliana.
Of course.
I just want you to tell the people.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Just tell the people where they can find you on the internet.
On the interweb, on the matrix.
Social media.
Yeah, I'm always out and about. You can always find me on Instagram. I think my name is Soul, and then like a frog face, and then Anna. Or just type Enemy of Progress. I should pop up. I should be able to pop up in those cases too. But yeah, I hope that most of my interactions I have, it's more like a community, like in person. But if it ever does have to be on the interweb, try not to find me, actually. Oh, man. I'm not a serious person. Okay. I'm not a serious person on the internet. But actually, I want to know, what's a proverb that or a saying that kind of gets you by?
Ooh. This is not necessarily a proverb, but something I've learned. And it's that nobody has it figured out.
Yes.
Everybody's just as lost and confused and nervous and afraid. Absolutely. And just like you are. No one has it figured out at no point in life. Like, I used to put so much pressure on myself to like, okay, Sarah, you have to have this figured out. You have to know what your plan is going to be step by step and how you're going to achieve it in every area of your life, and blah, blah, blah. And I stumbled on this list I made when I was a teenager. And on the list, because on that list, I wrote that, well, I'll graduate from university at 19. I'll do my NYSC. I'll travel for my master's. And then by 24, I'll be married. By 26, I'll finish having all my kids. By this age, I'll be working. Oh my God. I saw that list and I burst out laughing.
You know what's hilarious though is time is actually just like made up. No, it really is, because the way I thought I was gonna have kids by 20, Ooh. I was like, yeah, retire by 30. I was throwing numbers. I was throwing random ass numbers. I was like, 30 sounds good. 30 feels right.
Yeah, exactly.
End it. 33, I
Oh.
wanted to actually die. I wanted to, no, literally, I was like, by 33, I shouldn't need to be alive anymore. I should have lived all of life. I should pack it up and start getting ready.
Not
I kid you
33.
not. Literally, I didn't even want to get to 60. I don't want to get a 40, 50. It was random numbers. I was throwing stuff out. Time really is a construct. Like, we made that up.
It really is. And that's one thing I've learned is that like no one has it figured out. When you go into a room and you're like, oh my gosh, are they looking at me? Are they judging me? Everybody else feels that way. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like everyone, we're
Yes.
all just trying to do this. Like no one has been here before. We're all taking it one step at a time, one day at a time, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something I've learned and that's something that has given me some peace about my journey that like
Yes.
it's okay that I'm still figuring this out. Like nobody has it figured out. Like Elon Musk is still figuring it out. The wealthiest people, the
Yes.
poorest people, the biggest, the smallest, everyone is figuring this out. And that's
Yeah.
okay, you know? Just, you know, that gave me permission in a way to be okay with myself and be at peace with myself and just be at rest with where I was or
Mm.
where I am and just be content. So
Yes.
that's something that I've learned that I just remind myself, all right, Sarah, I mean this is
No, I
chaotic,
really like
but
that.
it's okay. this is
No,
this
I
is a
really
lot,
like
but
it.
you'll be fine and you'll take it one step at a time and you'll be okay. Nobody has it figured out, you know?
Yeah. No, that's a really nice kind of reminder for yourself, and I like how you said like you've given yourself permission to kind of to feel certain ways or to be like it's okay to panic right now or to not. But you know what though, I feel like it's weird that we expect to have things like there's a deadlines. Like we've given ourselves deadlines in life, and it's such an interesting thing.
Hmm.
Just generally, I'm just like, why though?
Yeah.
Like why has this time been my limitations? Why is this the expiry date?
Hmm.
It's a little bit weird. And you know what, as an artist, as a young artist too, there's this idea that like you're young, you know, and you're
Hmm.
okay right now. Like it's good to, you're still young, you still got it, but like, you know, once you hit 27, and I'm like, are you sick? 27 is old? No, no, wrap it up, wrap it up. At this point, you've given me a picture of the future, and it's so dark. It's
Mm.
so dark, I cannot see. You crazy? No way.
Yeah.
Or just like, yeah, it's just like I shouldn't pursue something anymore because I'm no longer a certain age, or it would be inappropriate if I. And I'm just like, but like, where did that come from? Actually, that's so
Exactly.
confusing. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Life doesn't even like work in that way either. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe if it's a way for us as like individuals to try to kind of get ahead of something, or like, you know, something that might be scary or not understandable, because you're like, oh no, like by this age I'll have that figured out. But it's maybe not supposed to be figured out. You're just supposed to like experience life. Just experience. Yeah, just experience it. Just do the day to day. Today is bad. Wake up tomorrow and start again.
Exactly. And it will work like it always does. Like
It
that
always
thing you're like giving yourself
does.
a headache about, you're waking up at night, you're worrying and wondering
Yeah.
how it's going. It just you blink and it's over. It happened last week and you're like, "Wait, how did I get through
Literally.
that?" Like, you know?
Yes.
So like,
Yeah. The most
yeah,
anxiety inducing situations you could think of. It will be over in a couple moments, and you'll be
literally.
okay.
And you'll be
Um,
okay.
yeah.
Literally.
And there's actually a quote. There's actually a quote where it's just like, what's it called? Today I begin a day. Today I begin anew. So it's this idea that like every day you pretend like it's the only day, like it's your first day sort of thing. And I
Mm.
like it because not in the sense that like you're completely stupid, but in the sense that like whatever love that you first started with, it's still here today too. It gets to be new today, right? You get to have kind of a different perspective or a different experience of it, and
Yeah.
that's cool. And
That is
I like that
awesome.
24. Yeah, I like that 24-hour kind of limit where I'm just like, it'll end, the night will come, the sun will go down, I'll take a nap,
Yep.
then I'll wake up, and then I'll get the excitement of being curious again, of like exploring life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Once again, thank you so much. It's been
It
amazing
is an
having you here.
honor. Thank you so much. I hope I come back again soon.
I mean, why
You know
not?
how much I love you, Sarah.
Ah,
Just
love
give me a
you
call.
too. Let's do it.
Just
Let's
give me
do
a
it.
call.
Let's do it. All right,
All right. Well, thank
then.
you so much for having me today.
Thank you again for being here.
Of course. You take care.
Yeah, of course. And thank you to our listeners. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Afros in the Diaspora. I hope this episode left you feeling inspired and hopeful. To engage, feel free to like, follow, share, and subscribe to Afros in the Diaspora on all social media and podcast platforms. Remember to leave a review and a rating. If you would like to be a guest, please reach out. Send an email to hi@afrosinthediaspora.com. That is hi@afrosinthediaspora.com. Or send us a DM on Instagram at afrosinthediaspora. Remember, there is beauty in our stories and power in our voices. Together, we are stronger. Until next time.